I must admit, I feel a bit sorry for Blueprints. Even before it released, this game became a victim of circumstances its creator could hardly influence. It could have been a cult classic for genre enthusiasts, or at least for those who appreciate certain specific puzzle-solving experiences. But once journalists hastily labeled it a Game of the Year contender on popular aggregator site House and Shoot, hordes of gamers rushed to find the promised GOTY experience, only to encounter elements that many professional reviewers somehow overlook or choose to ignore. As a result, this indie project acquired a reputation as an overhyped bubble and absorbed hate that should have been directed elsewhere. But if you approach Blueprints without all this hype, I will discover a game that is far from the perfect, but extraordinarily unique and at a certain moment truly phenomenal. Blueprints begins with a premise straight out of a classic English novel. You play as a close living heir to a wealthy family, arriving at the doorstep of your eccentric, puzzle-loving great-uncle mansion. The inheritance is substantial. Alongside the family estate, you will bequeath the surrounding lands and a baronial title. But with the one condition, you must find a secret 46 room in the 45 room mansion. Your task is complicated by the fact that every day the mansion's interior changes. Familiar room disappears, replaced by new ones. Each room harbors fragments of memories about the former inhabitants' convoluted history. In practice, the daily restructuring is wrapped in the familiar roguelike formula. When opening any door, you are given a choice of three possible rooms that might be behind it. This trio is randomly selected from an impressive overall set. Some rooms require keys and diamonds to access, which you can find by searching hidden corners and solving puzzles. You can't wander endlessly through corridors. Limited stamina will eventually force you to rest, resetting much of your progress and starting anew, albeit with new knowledge and clues. The mansion's layout is a vertical 5-9-10 grid of 45 cells, most of which can be built upon. Your first declared objective is to reach the farthest row, where the passage to room 46 supposed hides. This isn't particularly difficult if you keep track of door directories and resource expenditure, but this is merely the most superficial layer of the game. Blueprints is one of those puzzles that are bigger than they initially seem. A terrible expression, we should really come up with a proper term this subgenre. There are plenty of games that fit it. Fez, Antichamber, The Witness, particularly the Talos Principle, and even Tunic. The creator of Blueprints isn't breaking new ground there. You know, when they tell you the game's about one thing, but you dive deeper, you start noticing connections hiding from the first glance, and you say to yourself, oh, that's what it all means, that's where the real game was hiding. A significant part of the satisfaction in such moments comes from the fact that nobody explicitly explained it to you. You figure out it by yourself, using observation and ingenuity. Blueprints has many such moments, and some of them genuinely blow your mind, forcing you to look at your entire journey different. Unfortunately, a specific example would venture into spoiler territory, which is the main curse in the discussion about this game. Game journalists talk about how amazing Blueprints is, but they can't explain what makes it so amazing. To avoid being quick, I will highlight a couple of minor, relatively obvious details from the first few hours. Trust me, this game has much more to surprise you behind these elements. Almost every solved puzzle or new piece of information leads to new mysterious locations, mechanics and objectives. Even the formal ending with credits, which you can reach around hour 15, is just the first step on a more extensive journey. And a Blueprint is a bigger than it seems, in the most literal sense too. It's a huge game. I've spent 35 hours and 30 in-game days in it, long obtaining the ending, but continue to discover new things, and I seem to be only halfway to solving the bigger puzzle in the game. I put that in quotes because understanding there might be something more beyond it. This game has pulled such tricks on the multiple times, but I have a feeling I will think of it with a couple more days, close the most grisly looming objectives and set it aside forever. Because for all its cool puzzles, grandiose meta puzzles, and invaluable moments in relevation, this game can repel many players in several ways. First and foremost, Blueprints is very demanding of players on multiple levels. It simply won't suit everyone. It's one thing that without good knowledge of English there's nothing to do there. Several puzzles are firmly tied to wordplay. As a long-time color-blinded player, I suffered through the color-based puzzles. But the main thing Blueprints demands is enormous investment of time and attention, and it's not hurry to reward them. In one of the mentioned first room you can find a note advising you to write down all curious observations somewhere. And damn it, this is no joke. This is one of those games you should literally play with a notebook at hand or with a set of open documents and spreadsheet. Writing, sketching, drawing and connecting details scattered through mention. Otherwise some puzzles can't be solved. To the game's credit, the most important discoveries can usually be reached in several ways, and it's not absolutely necessary to collect every single clue to get the ending, but the ending here is purely formal thing. The second massive obstacle and any player seeking to unravel the game's mysterious will face is his majesty randomness. Let's be clear. No, the game couldn't exist without randomness, and many crucial conceptual ideas are tied especially to the randomization of the meta, but how sophisticated it can be. The worst moments come when you already figure out the solution to another puzzle, you just need to connect all the parts and enjoy the reward. But the random number generator stubbornly refuses to give you the rooms you need, time after time, and there's nothing you can do about it. Yes, you can partially influence the room selection, not as sufficiently as you might want. Yes, you can always temporarily switch to other tasks, but such unfair obstacles are incredibly draining. Finally, Blueprints is terribly repetitive, and often, especially in later stages, you get the feeling that the game is wasting your time. Some progress is saved between days, but many actions have to be repeated day after day, and I simply don't understand why designed this way. Take the saves scattered through the mansion, locked with combination locks. They usually contain important plot content and some useful resources. Figuring out the right combination for any of them is generally a non-trivial and pleasant task. But once you get the code, you will find that obtaining these resources you will need to enter it every day. And so it goes with many other elements. On my 30-something run, I'm walking through the same empty corridors, entering the same passwords, pulling the same levers, turning the same valves, watching the same long animation and wondering why I am subject to all of this. The plot is perhaps the most ambitious aspect of Blueprints, and another potential red flag for some players. On one hand, it presents so nebulously that many will find it annoying. The so-called ending doesn't answer any of the important questions, which in itself can be disappointing. Even after 40 plus hours in the game, I can't reconstruct the picture of events 100% in details, though I grasp the general storyline. The plot here exemplifies a simple story told through a deliberately complex methods, and unlike the puzzle, it seems bigger than it is, rather than being bigger than it seems. Maybe I am wrong and I am 100 hours the plot will unfold in such a way that I will fall off my chair. I am just not sure I am ready to devote those 100 hours to the game. On the other hand, despite all this, unraveling the family history, establishing each relative role, and reconstructing their personal dramas from detailing is gently engaging. It's real detective work. Almost all characters remain off-screen, and their portraits can only be pieced together through traces left in the estate, diaries, books, notes, photographs, driving status, newspaper clippings, logs on computer terminals, half-erased notes on slate boards, and even foggy photographs from the fortune-telling doll living in one of the rooms. It becomes even more interesting when you start learning about the game settings, its geography, mythology, and political structure. You have to process a lot of fragmentation information while keeping track on the tiniest detail. I personally created a separate document just for this, and don't regret it at all. Finally, from purely artistic standpoint, Blueprints leaves a somewhat dual impression. When you are examining the mansion's interior or admiring natural panoramas from the local cliffs, everything is gorgeous. Small details like photograph, painting, and various printed materials are also crafted with love and care. But then 3D character models suddenly appear on the screen and oh my god, why was this even included in the game in this form? They not look sloppy but also clash dramatically with the overall style. It seems even a slideshow with a two-dimensional sprites would behave better than the local cutscenes. Fortunately, you don't have to watch them very often. The sound, however, is perfectly done, which might sound strange for such a quiet game. Most of the time, Blueprint's soundscape is extremely minimalist, barely audible footsteps, quietly creaking doors, clicking keys, but at the most important moments, when you make key discoveries, the soundtrack finally awakens, built step by step, and in contrast to the female sounds landscape, sound incredibly epic. In my memory, this is one of the rare examples of extremely competent use of the silence in sound design. Akira Ikumoka would be proud. Thank you for watching.